Hi, I'm Stephanie Kraft. I'm an energy healer, medical intuitive, and hypnotherapist with a practice in Northern Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. More information about my work can be found on stephaniecraft.com. In this video, I am going to talk about what hypnosis is. So, hypnosis is a highly focused state of mind. There's an example which is pretty common, and perhaps it's happened to you. If you've ever driven home from somewhere familiar, perhaps driven home from work, and you got there and you were like, whoa, how did I get here? I didn't even pay attention. Well, that's called highway hypnosis. It's a real state of hypnosis. And what's happening is that because hypnosis is a highly focused state of mind, you are lost in your thoughts. So when you're driving along and you're not really paying attention to the road, although we all know that we can pretty much drive somewhere familiar automatically and somehow follow the rules. But we're lost in our thoughts, and you could even have the radio on, there could be talking, there could be music, you have no idea what played, what was spoken, nothing. Because you've tuned out all outside distractions just automatically by focusing on your thoughts so much. It's like that daydreaming state. Well, other examples of hypnosis that most of us, perhaps all of us, go through each day would be something like when you're on the internet or reading a book or watching a movie. You get fully engrossed in what you're doing to the point that you have tuned out all outside distractions automatically. There could even be an instance where somebody walks up to you and asks you a question, and you really don't hear a word that they say. And that you have to disengage from what you're doing, turn to them and ask them, excuse me, what did you just say? And so that's because you literally couldn't hear them. And again, like I said, it's because you were fully engrossed in what you were reading or watching or the movie. And a lot of people say that hypnosis is a relaxed state or a deeply relaxed state, and that's not exactly true because, as you all know, that if you're watching a drama or even a comedy where you're laughing pretty hard or a horror film, your emotional body is activated and you could be very tense, very scared, sitting on the edge of your seat, and you're not relaxed at all in those situations, and yet you are under hypnosis because that is what hypnosis is. It's an altered state of mind where you're fully involved with your mind in a scene and not really paying attention to what's going on around you. Now, what happens in the brain in that state is that, so in the normal conscious state where you're alert and aware, your brain waves are a certain speed. When you get into that hypnotic state, the brain waves slow down, and then sleeping is an even slower brain wave rate. And so hypnosis is that in-between state, and yet it's not sleep. And so the reason that we go into hypnosis is that focused state of mind. And so in a hypnotherapy session, what's happening is that the hypnotherapist is guiding the client into that state. And first of all, let me say that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So it is up to the client to allow themselves to be brought into that state and to help themselves into that state as well. Although it's best not to try too hard, just like when you're driving. You don't tell yourself, okay, I'm going to zone out now, because we don't do it on purpose. Same as when we're watching a movie. We don't say, okay, I'm going to completely be distracted by this movie and not, hear the people around me talking. It just happens automatically. Our brains fall into that state automatically. So in a hypnotherapy session, the job of the hypnotherapist is to help guide the client into that state by doing what's called an induction. And during the induction, that's the time that the client is guided into that state. And so It can feel like deep relaxation, and usually it does. However, once the client is in the hypnotic state, there's work to be done, and that's why they're there. And so sometimes in a hypnosis session, if the goal is to bring up trauma or uncomfortable emotions in order to heal them and release them, again, we know that that's not relaxing. And so it's not true that all hypnosis is deep relaxation. So there could be heightened emotions. And so at that time, the client is still under hypnosis and yet feeling intense emotions. And the reason we use hypnosis to do things like heal emotions and release trauma is because it's hard to do at the conscious level. Sometimes we cannot retrieve those feelings, or sometimes we cannot retrieve those memories. And so under hypnosis, we can get at that through the subconscious mind, where the subconscious mind is like a computer. It has recorded all of your experiences, whether you remember them or not. And so by accessing that level of the mind, we can access all of your experiences, and the work at that level is much more therapeutic than at the conscious level, which is why hypnotherapy is much more effective than just talk therapy, because in talk therapy, you're just going around and around those same issues by talking about them at the conscious level, but you're not actually doing any work at the deeper subconscious levels of the mind, where you're actually able to release those issues and heal them at therapeutic levels. So a hypnosis session, just to recap, is first of all an induction to help guide the client into the hypnotic state, and then work is done at that once they're there at that level. And really anything that you could ever think of can be worked on under hypnosis, and the client does remember, unless they've drifted so deeply, and it's really just for a stress reduction or relaxation session, or anxiety reduction, or it could be a number of things where the client doesn't actually need to hear you. I mean, even smoking cessation, weight loss. I mean, the list goes on, where if the client does drift off into a really deep state of hypnosis and they're not hearing the hypnotherapist anymore, that's perfectly fine. But in other sessions where the active participation of the client is important and necessary, such as giving verbal responses or bodily responses, like lifting a finger, is one example of just an acknowledgement that they're hearing you. And so at those levels where we do require the participation of the client, it's a somewhat of a lighter state of hypnosis than in a state of amnesia, for example. So I was saying before that usually the client does remember everything, because if they're in that lighter state, they're going to remember. So because in the work that I usually do, the clients do remember, because I'm pretty interactive with my clients in terms of asking them to participate in their own healing process under hypnosis. So that's what hypnosis is. Let me just wrap this up by giving a few more examples of what it feels like when you're under hypnosis. You're aware of this other experience you're having that's coming from the subconscious mind, somewhat like, you are watching a movie. You're aware that you're fully being pulled into this drama or whatever it may be, and yet it's not real at the same time, and you're analyzing it with your conscious mind. Well, it's similar under hypnosis, where you are having this other real experience brought up by your subconscious mind, and yet your conscious mind is present and available and analyzing the situation concurrently with what's happening. So it's as simple as imagining that I tell you, okay, imagine that you're walking along a beach. You can imagine that in your mind's eye. Feel the sand, feel the sun, smell the salt air, and so on. So you're getting fully immersed in that scene, and yet at the same time your conscious mind can analyze, oh wow, I really do feel like I'm at the beach, and so on. So that's what a hypnosis session is like, and I will go into more details about how it can be used therapeutically in some other videos. See you soon.